What could erase 185,000 warriors in a single night without a whisper of battle or a drop of blood? Imagine an army so vast it darkened the horizon, an empire that crushed nations like dry leaves, brought to its knees in mere hours. This isn't a myth spun by storytellers. It's a moment carved into history, a night when one city's faith faced the mightiest power on earth. Welcome to the chilling tale of Jerusalem's stand, where a king, a prayer, and a mystery changed everything. In the heart of ancient Judah, Jerusalem stood as a beacon of hope, a city chosen by God but surrounded by enemies. Its young king, Hezekiah, dared to defy a world that bowed to idols, rebuilding his people's faith from the ashes of betrayal. But when the Assyrian Empire, a juggernaut led by the ruthless Senakaribb, turned its gaze on Jerusalem, the stakes became unimaginable. This is a story of courage against impossible odds, of a single night that turned despair into triumph. It's a journey through history and faith, where one man's trust in God faced an army that had never known defeat. Stay with us, because this story isn't just a chapter from the past. It's a spark that can light your own path. By the end of this video, you'll uncover a truth that's as powerful today as it was then. No challenge is too great when faith leads the way. You'll see how one night's miracle reshaped a nation and discover a perspective that might just change how you face your own battles. Whether you're drawn to history's mysteries or the power of belief, this tale will leave you with a new lens on what's possible when hope refuses to fade. Before we step into ancient Jerusalem, do us a quick favor. Hit that like button to show your support and subscribe to join our community of story lovers. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a video like this one. Your support keeps these epic tales alive, and we can't wait to share this journey with you. Now let's dive into a night that turned an empire to dust and lit a flame that burns eternal. In the ancient heart of Judah, Jerusalem was a city that had once shone like a star. Its streets had carried the footsteps of pilgrims, its temple a radiant symbol of God's promise to his people. But under King Ahaz, that brilliance had dimmed to a flicker. A heavy shadow draped the city, woven from the smoke of altars burning to idols of stone and wood. Where songs of worship once rose to the heavens, now the air trembled with the chants of foreign rituals, each note a wound to the covenant forged with Abraham. The people, led astray by their king, traded their sacred heritage for gods that could neither hear nor save. This wasn't just a lapse in faith, it was a betrayal of a nation's soul. The Temple of Solomon, a masterpiece built to house God's presence, stood abandoned, its gates locked, its altars covered in dust. The priests, once the keepers of divine truth, had faded into obscurity, leaving the faithful to wander in confusion. Markets thrived, but the spiritual pulse of Jerusalem was faint, its streets lined with shrines to Baal and Asherah. Children no longer heard tales of Moses parting the sea or Joshua conquering Jericho. Instead, they learned the names of pagan deities, their young minds shaped by lies. Historical accounts, such as 2 Chronicles 28, 2-4, paint a grim picture of Ahaz's reign. He not only embraced idolatry, but committed atrocities, offering his own sons as sacrifices to appease false gods. This act sent ripples of horror through Judah, shattering the trust of those who still clung to the old ways. The covenant that had guided Israel through the wilderness was now a distant memory, drowned out by the clamor of pagan festivals. To walk through Jerusalem was to feel a city unmoored, its identity crumbling under the weight of betrayal. Yet in this suffocating darkness, a question lingered. Could a people so lost ever rediscover their light? Could Jerusalem rise from its ashes? In the midst of this despair, a young prince named Hezekiah emerged as a beacon. At 25, he was a solitary figure, his heart anchored in the stories of his people's past. While the city bowed to lifeless idols, Hezekiah listened to the whispered tales of his tutors. David standing fearless before Goliath, his sling ready. Moses raising his staff to split the Red Sea. Abraham trusting God's promise of a son against all reason. These weren't mere legends to him. They were the fire that kept his spirit alive, a reminder of a God who never abandoned his own. Hezekiah's faith was a quiet rebellion, nurtured in the shadows of a palace surrounded by idolatry. From his chamber, he could see the flickering lights of pagan altars on the hills, each one a challenge to his resolve. Yet his heart burned with a vision, a Jerusalem restored, its temple alive, its people united under the God of their fathers. The book of 2 Kings 18:3-5 praises him as unmatched among Judah's kings, a man who trusted in the Lord with unwavering devotion. Unlike his father Ahaz, who had led the nation into ruin, Hezekiah saw a path forward, one paved with courage and conviction. This inner strength made him unique. In a city where hope was scarce, Hezekiah carried a spark that refused to die. He wasn't driven by ambition or power, but by a deep love for his people and their God. His youth masked a soul tempered by reflection, shaped by the weight of a nation's future. As he prepared to take the throne, a question pulsed within him. Could one man's faith turn back the tide of darkness? That question, burning in his heart, was about to set Judah on a new course. When Hezekiah ascended the throne, he didn't hesitate. His first act as king was a thunderbolt of courage. He ordered the gates of Solomon's temple, sealed shut for years under Ahaz, to be thrown open. The moment was electric. Crowds gathered in the courtyard, their eyes wide as the massive doors groaned, revealing a sanctuary shrouded in neglect. Dust hung in the air, catching the sunlight like a veil lifting from a forgotten treasure. Hezekiah stepped forward, his voice steady but fierce. Purify this place. Clear away every stain of idolatry. Let God's house shine again. The response was immediate. Priests and Levites, long sidelined by Ahaz's decrees, poured into the temple with renewed purpose. They scrubbed the marble floors, polished the golden lamps, and cleared the altars of pagan debris. The scent of fresh oil and incense filled the air, replacing the musty stillness of abandonment. As 2 Chronicles 29:3-11 recounts, Hezekiah rallied the religious leaders, urging them to restore the temple as the heart of Judah's worship. The people watching felt a stir of hope, their whispers spreading. Could this be the dawn of a new era? The temple's revival was more than physical. It was a spiritual awakening. Built by Solomon to embody God's presence, it had once drawn pilgrims from across the land. Now, as its halls hummed with activity, it became a symbol of Hezekiah's mission, to bring Judah back to its roots. The sight of priests carrying out broken idols, their arms heavy with the remnants of false worship, moved the crowd to tears. Yet as the temple began to glow, a question hovered. Would this bold act be enough to shield Jerusalem from the dangers lurking beyond its walls? Hezekiah's vision extended beyond the temple. He turned his attention to the high places, sacred groves and hilltops where pagan altars stood as insults to God. With unrelenting resolve, he sent his workers to tear them down. Hammers crashed against stone altars, reducing them to rubble. The Asherah poles, towering wooden carvings that had drawn worshippers for generations, were chopped into kindling, their fragments scattered by the wind. Even the bronze serpent, crafted by Moses to save the Israelites from plague, Numbers 21:8-9, had become a false idol. Hezekiah ordered it destroyed, naming it Nehushtan, a worthless piece of metal. The sound of destruction reverberated through Judah's valleys, a symphony of renewal. Each shattered idol was a step toward reclaiming the nation's soul. Hezekiah knew that physical destruction was only part of the battle. He aimed to break the grip these false gods held on his people's hearts. As 2 Kings 18:4 notes, he removed the high places and broke the sacred pillars, an act unprecedented among Judah's kings. The people watched in awe, some cheering, others hesitant, wary of abandoning traditions rooted in their past. This campaign was a gamble. Hezekiah risked alienating those who clung to the old ways, yet his faith drove him forward. The rubble of the altars became a testament to his conviction. No false god would rival the Lord in Jerusalem. As the dust settled, the hills stood clean, their sacred groves replaced by the promise of a new beginning. But the question remained, could Hezekiah's purge protect Judah from the enemies gathering in the distance, their eyes fixed on the city's walls? With the idols swept away, Hezekiah sought to unite his people in worship. He announced a grand celebration of the Passover, a feast that had been forgotten since the days of Solomon's heirs. This wasn't just a ritual, it was a call to remember God's deliverance, a bridge to the night when the angel of death passed over Israel and Egypt. The city came alive as families prepared, their homes filled with the scent of roasted lamb and the rustle of unleavened bread. Messengers rode across Judah, even into the scattered remnants of Israel, inviting all to join. The event, detailed in 2 Chronicles 31-5, was a marvel. Thousands streamed into Jerusalem, their voices rising in song as they filled the temple courts. The air shimmered with the aroma of offerings, the sound of laughter mingling with prayers. Hezekiah moved among the people, his presence a reminder that this was their celebration, their renewal. For 7 days Judah feasted, their hearts knit together by shared faith. Elders told stories of the Exodus, their eyes bright with tears, while children listened, wide-eyed, learning the heritage their parents had forgotten. The Passover was a triumph, a moment when Jerusalem remembered who it was. Joy returned not as a visitor, but as a resident, filling the streets with life. Yet as the crowds dispersed, a shadow lingered. The world beyond Judah was stirring, its armies sharpening their blades. Could this unity, so hard-won, withstand the trials ahead? Hezekiah's heart carried the answer, but the test was coming. Hezekiah's reforms had changed everything. The temple stood open, its lamps burning bright. The idols were gone, their altars reduced to dust. The Passover had woven Judah's people together, their faith rekindled. But the horizon was darkening. A vast empire, its armies unmatched, was watching Jerusalem with hungry eyes. Hezekiah had sparked a revival, but could his fire of faith burn through the storm that was coming? The question hung over the city, heavy as the clouds gathering in the distance. From the palace, Hezekiah gazed at the hills, his heart steady but aware. The battles ahead would demand more than walls or weapons. They would test the soul of his nation. For now, Jerusalem basked in its rediscovered light, its people singing songs of hope. But the rumble of war was growing louder, and a single night loomed, ready to rewrite history. What does it take to lead a people out of darkness? Come join me as I look at how Hezekiah faced this seemingly impossible challenge. In the ancient world, the Assyrian Empire stood as a juggernaut, its power unmatched, its reach vast. From the banks of the Tigris to the shores of the Euphrates, it crushed kingdoms with a force that shook the earth. Its army of 185,000 warriors was no mere gathering of soldiers. It was a living storm, a relentless wave that left only silence in its wake. Their crimson cloaks billowed like blood across the plains, their bronze shields glinting under the sun, forming a wall no arrow could pierce. Chariots roared, their iron wheels grinding stone to dust, while massive siege towers, tall as ancient cedars, loomed over city walls, raining arrows and fire. The Assyrians were masters of conquest, their strategies honed over centuries. They didn't just overpower their foes, they broke their will before the first spear was thrown. Encircling cities, they severed supply lines, starving defenders into submission. Their engineers diverted rivers to drown towns or parch them dry, while sappers burrowed beneath fortifications, collapsing them like sand. The prophet Nahum captured their terror in Nahum 2:3-4. The shields of his warriors are red, the chariots flash like flame when mustered in array. Historical records, such as the Annals of Ashurbanipal, detail their campaigns, recounting how entire nations, Philistia, Babylon, Elam, were reduced to rubble, their people chained and marched to exile in lands like Hala and Habor, 2 Kings 17:6. This was an empire that thrived on fear, its victories carved into stone reliefs that showed kings groveling and cities burning. The northern kingdom of Israel had already fallen to their might, its capital Samaria besieged for 3 years before crumbling, 2 Kings 18:9-10. Now, as their banners rose on Judah's horizon, a question gripped the heart of every soul in Jerusalem. Could any city, no matter how sacred, withstand this merciless tide? Could faith stand against a force that had toppled empires? Leading this unstoppable machine was Senakaribb, a ruler whose pride burned brighter than the sun. From 705 to 681 BC, he reigned from Nineveh, a sprawling city so grand it took 3 days to cross, as the prophet Jonah noted, Jonah 3:3. Senakeribb styled himself king of the universe, his ambition a flame that consumed all reason. His palace walls, now preserved in the British Museum, were adorned with reliefs of his triumphs, captives kneeling, fortresses aflame, and rivers choked with the spoils of war. Each conquest was a testament to his glory, his name immortalized in clay tablets like the Taylor Prism, which boasts of his campaign against Judah with chilling confidence. Senakeribb's arrogance was more than boastful words. It was a worldview. He saw himself as untouchable, a god among men, his will bending nations like reeds. To him, Jerusalem was a trifle, a stepping stone in his quest to dominate the world. The prophet Isaiah warned of his hubris, comparing him to a raging flood that would sweep away all in its path. Isaiah 8:7-8. Yet Senakeribb scoffed at such warnings, his laughter echoing through his war councils. He believed no deity could rival his might, no king could challenge his throne. In his eyes, Hezekiah was a fool, clinging to a god who had failed Samaria. As his armies marched south, their drums a heartbeat of doom, the people of Judah whispered his name with dread. A merchant in Jerusalem's market clutched his wares, his eyes darting to the hills. A grandmother prayed silently, her hands trembling. Senakeribb's shadow loomed larger with each step, raising a question that pierced the city's heart. Could a king who mocked the heavens be humbled, or would Jerusalem fall like so many before it? When the Assyrian army reached Jerusalem's walls, a single figure emerged from their ranks. Rabshakeh, Senakeribb's trusted commander. Standing by the aqueduct of the upper pool, he raised his voice, speaking in Hebrew to ensure every man, woman, and child on the walls heard his words. His speech was a blade, sharp and precise, designed to cut through courage. "Why trust Hezekiah?" he mocked. "He's leading you to death. Your God is powerless. Where were the gods of Hamath, Arpad, or Sepharvaim when we burned their cities?" 2 Kings 18:33-35. His voice dripped with contempt, each word a spark meant to ignite fear. Rabshakeh's use of Hebrew was a calculated strike, aimed at the common folk, not just the leaders. He twisted Hezekiah's reforms into betrayal. "Your king destroyed God's altars, angering him." 2 Kings 18:22. Then in a brazen lie, he claimed divine authority. "The Lord himself sent me to crush this land." 2 Kings 18:25. The blasphemy stunned the crowd. A young archer on the wall tightened his grip, his knuckles white. An old man below whispered a prayer, his faith shaken. Rabshakeh's words were a storm, battering the city's resolve, sowing doubt where unity was needed most. This verbal onslaught was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, a tactic Assyrians perfected. By mocking Hezekiah and God, Rabshakeh sought to fracture Jerusalem's spirit, to make surrender seem inevitable. He painted a world where Assyria was invincible, where no power, divine or human, could stand against them. Yet his taunts betrayed a blind spot. He didn't grasp the faith he scorned. As his voice faded, a question rose in the silence. Would Jerusalem's people crumble under these words, or would their king find a way to answer this challenge? Within Jerusalem's walls, Hezekiah stood unshaken. He refused to let fear dictate his actions, instead rallying his people with a resolve that burned like fire. Workers labored day and night, stacking stones to fortify the city's defenses until the walls rose like cliffs against the sky. Blacksmiths hammered swords, their forges glowing, while archers practiced on the ramparts, their arrows whistling through the air. Hezekiah's greatest feat was the Siloam Tunnel, a 1,750-foot channel carved through solid rock to bring water from the Gihon Spring into the city, 2 Kings 20:20. This marvel, still walkable today, ensured Jerusalem could endure a siege, its people sustained by a hidden stream. Hezekiah's leadership was more than a strategic, it was inspirational. He walked the streets, his presence a beacon for the fearful. The Assyrians have armies, and he told them, but we have the God who felled Goliath with a single stone. 2 Chronicles 32:7-8. His words echoed through the city, stirring courage in hearts weighed down by dread. Storehouses brimmed with jars marked LMLK for the king, filled with oil, wine, and grain, a testament to his planning. A mother in the market square held her son close, her eyes fixed on Hezekiah, believing he could lead them through this nightmare. These efforts were rooted in faith, not just survival. Hezekiah knew that walls and water couldn't stop Assyria alone. Only trust in God could. His preparations were a declaration: Jerusalem would not bow. As the city transformed into a fortress, a question lingered. Could this young king's courage hold against the empire's wrath, or would his defiance invite destruction? In a final effort to spare his people, Hezekiah tried to buy peace. He sent a message to Senakaribb, encamped at Lachish, where the screams of captives filled the air. "I've erred," he wrote. "Set your terms and I'll meet them." 2 Kings 18:14. The price was staggering: 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold, a ransom that drained Jerusalem's wealth. Craftsmen pried golden panels from the temple doors, their hands trembling as they dismantled sacred treasures. Silver was gathered from homes and markets, each coin a piece of Judah's pride. The tribute was delivered, a glittering offering laid at Senakeribb's feet. But the king's greed knew no bounds. The gold only whetted his appetite, his heart set on conquest, not compromise. He sent Rabshakeh back with a new ultimatum: total surrender or annihilation. The betrayal was a dagger to Jerusalem's heart. Hezekiah had humbled himself, sacrificing the temple's glory only to be mocked. A priest in the temple courtyard knelt, his prayers urgent. A merchant's wife wept, her hope fading. The city's spirit wavered, its future hanging by a thread. This failed bid laid bare the crisis. Senakeribb's heart, as hard as the stones of Nineveh, offered no mercy. The gold, meant to buy safety, now fueled the enemy's ambition. As the Assyrian campfires blazed outside, a question burned in every heart. With peace beyond reach, what could save Jerusalem from the storm? Jerusalem stood encircled, a lone flame flickering against a gathering tempest. Hezekiah had fortified the walls, secured water, and rallied his people, but the Assyrian army was a mountain of iron and fire, its 185,000 warriors ready to crush the city. Rabshakeh's taunts lingered like poison, while Senakeribb's arrogance cast a shadow no sword could cut. Yet within these walls a king held fast, his faith a quiet strength against the roar of war. Could one man's trust in God defy an empire that had never known defeat? As darkness fell, the city grew still. The clatter of Assyrian spears faded, replaced by a hush that felt alive with possibility. Hezekiah climbed to the highest tower, his gaze fixed on the heavens, his heart anchored in a promise older than the stones beneath his feet. A single night was approaching, one that would test the soul of Jerusalem and rewrite its story. What would you do when the world stands against you? Stay tuned with me to discover how Hezekiah faced the impossible. As twilight fell over Jerusalem, the city stood poised on the brink of fate. Beyond its towering walls, the Assyrian army, 185,000 warriors strong, spread across the plains, their tents a vast constellation of menace under a sky devoid of stars. The glow of their campfires flickered like 1,000 eyes, watching, waiting. Inside the city, the air was heavy with dread. Families gathered in their homes, their voices hushed, their prayers rising like smoke. The streets, once vibrant with merchants and laughter, were now cloaked in a stillness that felt alive, as if the night itself held a secret. A watchman on the ramparts gripped his spear, his eyes scanning the darkness, his breath shallow in the oppressive quiet. This silence was not merely the absence of sound. It was a presence, thick and unnerving. The usual clamor of an army preparing for war, the sharpening of blades, the boasts of soldiers, the creak of siege engines, had vanished, replaced by a void that chilled the soul. A young boy peering from his window whispered to his father, "Why is it so quiet?" His father, a carpenter, had no answer, only a prayer. The prophet Isaiah's words, recorded in 2 Kings 19:6, lingered in the minds of the faithful. "Do not fear the blasphemies you have heard." Yet fear was a stubborn guest, creeping into every heart. Historical accounts offer no record of Assyrian activity that night, as if the empire's war machine had paused, caught in a moment of divine suspense. The stillness was a prelude to something beyond human understanding. No one could see it, but a power was stirring, invisible yet undeniable. Mothers held their children closer, their lips moving in silent pleas. Elders recounted tales of God's past deliverances, the Red Sea parting, Jericho's walls falling, hoping history might repeat. As the darkness deepened, a question hung over Jerusalem like a gathering storm. What force lay hidden in this eerie hush, and what would the dawn unveil? When the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, Jerusalem beheld a sight that defied reason. The Assyrian camp, once a fortress of steel and fire, was now a silent necropolis. Across the fields, 185,000 warriors lay dead, their bodies untouched by blade or arrow. No blood stained their crimson cloaks, no wounds marred their shields. Just an unnatural stillness, as if life had been snatched away in a breath. From the city walls, a sentinel staggered back, his voice breaking as he shouted, "They're gone!" Crowds rushed to the ramparts, their gas rising like a wave. A weaver, her hands trembling, whispered, "It's a miracle." The event, etched in 2 Kings 19:35, is hauntingly brief. That night the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. No clash of armies, no rain of arrows, just a divine act that shattered the mightiest force of the age. The people of Jerusalem, who had braced for slaughter, stood frozen, their fear replaced by awe. A blacksmith, his forge still warm, dropped to his knees, tears carving paths through the soot on his face. An elderly woman, her voice quavering, recalled the Passover in Egypt, when God's angel struck the firstborn, Exodus 12:29-30, seeing a shadow of that night in this one. Some murmured of a sudden plague, others of a celestial warrior, but all felt the weight of a power no mortal could wield. This miracle was a thunderbolt of divine sovereignty, a moment when heaven touched earth. The Assyrian army, which had toppled empires, was reduced to a monument of God's unmatched authority. As the sun climbed higher, bathing the silent camp in light, a question echoed through the city. Was this the work of a single angel, a hidden calamity, or a mystery too vast for human minds to unravel? The remnants of the Assyrian army scattered like leaves in a storm, their invincibility shattered. Senakaribb, the self-styled king of the universe, led the retreat, his pride a smoldering ruin. The man who had mocked the God of Israel, who had boasted of drying rivers and felling forests, 2 Kings 19:23-24, now fled to Nineveh, his heart heavy with defeat. His palace, once a shrine to his glory, became a cage for his shame. Yet his downfall was not yet complete. In the temple of Nisroch, his lifeless idol, Senakaribb knelt, perhaps seeking solace from a god of stone. There his own sons, Adramelech and Sharezer, struck him down with swords, fleeing to Ararat as Esarhaddon seized the throne, 2 Kings 19:36-37. The irony was poetic. The king who had challenged the Holy One met his end before a deity that could neither hear nor save. This fulfilled Isaiah's prophecy in 2 Kings 19:7. "I will make him fall by the sword in his own land." The Babylonian Chronicles, a secular record from the period, confirms Senakeribb's assassination, echoing the biblical account with chilling precision. His death was a mirror of ancient giants. Goliath, Pharaoh, felled for defying God's will. In Jerusalem, a potter heard the news and paused, his hands still on the clay, his heart lifting with gratitude. A young mother sang a lullaby to her child, her voice soft with relief. The tyrant was no more. Senakeribb's demise was more than retribution. It was a divine verdict. His pride, once a blazing torch, was now dust, a warning to all who exalt themselves above the Creator. As Nineveh mourned its fallen king, a question resounded. How could a ruler so mighty be brought so low? And what did his fall reveal about the power he had scorned? The miracle at Jerusalem left footprints in the sands of time, preserved in relics that speak across centuries. The Senakeribb prism, a six-sided clay artifact now in Chicago's Oriental Institute, chronicles his campaign against Judah with vivid detail. "I shut up Hezekiah like a bird in a cage." Yet in a deafening omission, it never claims Jerusalem's fall. For a king who etched every victory into stone, this silence is a testament to defeat, aligning with 2 Kings 19's account of his failure. Archaeologists puzzle over this gap, a whisper of a night when human might bowed to divine will. The Siloam Tunnel, carved through 1,750 feet of rock under Hezekiah's command, stands as another monument. Still accessible today, Its winding path ensured Jerusalem's water supply during the siege, a marvel of faith and foresight. 2 Kings 20:20. At Lachish, reliefs from Senakeribb's palace, now in the British Museum, depict its brutal conquest. Flames consuming walls, captives led in chains. But no such images exist for Jerusalem. This absence is a silent victory, a void where Assyrian triumph should have been. The Babylonian chronicles further corroborate Senakeribb's assassination by his sons, matching 2 Kings 1937, weaving a tapestry of evidence that grounds the biblical narrative in historical fact. These artifacts are more than relics. They are voices from the past, testifying to a moment when God's hand moved. A scholar studying the prism might pause, struck by its unspoken truth. A tourist walking the Siloam Tunnel might feel the weight of history beneath their feet. As these clues emerge from the earth, a question lingers. Do they confirm a miracle, or do they hint at a deeper mystery waiting to be uncovered? The story of that night is not confined to ancient Jerusalem. It is a light that shines through every age. Hezekiah's faith, unyielding against an empire's might, teaches that trust in God can transform the impossible into reality. His prayer, recorded in 2 Kings 19:15-19, was a cry not just for deliverance but for divine glory. Save us, so all nations may know you are the only God. This vision elevates personal struggles to a universal purpose, turning trials into testimonies of faith. A fisherman in Jerusalem, hearing of the miracle, vowed to pray with bolder trust, his heart stirred by God's power. Senakeribb's fall is a stark warning, echoing Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. His shattered army and ignoble death prove that no force, however grand, can stand against divine will. For a modern world wrestling with its own giants, fear, division, despair, this story offers hope. As Romans 8:31 proclaims, if God is for us, who can be against us? The miracle challenges us to reflect. What battles do we face, and how can faith guide us through? A teacher inspired by the tale might encourage her students to stand firm in their convictions, seeing Hezekiah's courage as a model. This lesson is a living flame, as vital now as it was then. Hezekiah's stand, rooted in surrender to God, calls us to trust in the unseen, to view our struggles as opportunities for divine victory. The songs of Jerusalem's people, rising in gratitude, carry a truth that transcends time. No darkness is too deep when God's light shines. As we ponder this story, a question beckons. How can this ancient victory inspire us to face our own challenges with unwavering hope? The echoes of that night linger, the memory of 185,000 fallen warriors fading into the dawn. Yet the pulse of this story beats on, a testament to a God whose power turns empires to dust. Hezekiah's prayer, the angel's unseen strike, Senakeribb's broken pride. These are not mere relics of history but lanterns lighting our way. They remind us that no enemy is too great, no night too long when faith holds fast. But what was the force that reshaped Jerusalem's fate? A single angel, a silent plague, or a divine mystery we'll never fully grasp? As Jerusalem's people danced in the streets, their voices a chorus of thanks, a new question arose. What does this miracle mean for us today? How can one night's triumph fuel our courage in the face of modern trials? This story lives in every heart that dares to believe, every soul that trusts in a power greater than itself. The night 185,000 Assyrian warriors fell is more than a story. It's a testament to the power of faith. Hezekiah, a king who dared to trust God against an empire's might, showed us that no darkness is too deep, no enemy too vast, when hope anchors the soul. His prayer in the face of despair, answered by a miracle that shattered Senakeribb's pride, reminds us that divine strength can turn the impossible into reality. This tale, etched in Jerusalem's stones, shines as a beacon. When we stand firm in faith, even the greatest storms can't prevail. What does this story stir in you? Have you ever faced a moment when hope carried you through a challenge that seemed unbeatable? Maybe it was a personal struggle, a fear that loomed like an army, or a time when trust in something greater made all the difference. Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how faith or courage has shaped your journey. Your experiences are part of this living narrative, connecting us across time to the people of Jerusalem who sang songs of victory that dawn. If this story moved you, give it a thumbs up to let us know, and share it with someone who needs a spark of inspiration. Subscribe and hit the bell to catch every new video as we uncover more tales of history and faith that light up the past and present. Your support keeps this channel thriving, bringing stories like Hezekiah's to life for viewers around the world. Together, we're building a community that celebrates the power of belief and the lessons of history. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey through Jerusalem's darkest night and brightest dawn. As you carry this story with you, may it remind you to stand strong, to trust deeply, and to face your battles with courage. Until next time, keep the flame of hope burning, and may God's light guide your path.